Welcome back. Boy Time Channel. Today, our 10th reaction recap,
I
I
think
believe.
so. Yeah,
Yeah. I think that means we've done like 100 albums on this channel,
at least.
which is kind of insane. Um, but yeah, if you have not watched one of these before, this is basically when we go back and talk about and give updated thoughts and feelings on like the past 10 or so albums that we've reacted to on the channel. So basically the last month or two of content. This one seems like it's a little bit more than 2 months, I would guess.
Yes, the first one that we were going to be talking about is Treasure by Cocteau Twins, which we recorded on June 2nd.
Oh yes. Alrighty. We had a lot of breaks during this cycle, but there was also like a lot of good albums. So
Yes.
I feel like we needed the time to sit with all of these. But yeah, stay tuned to the end. We'll be spinning the wheel for next week's video. We got year-end lists coming up soon, so we'll figure out what we're doing for that this year. It probably won't be as extensive as the previous years because those are a pain for me to edit, and I'll be moving during that time, so I'm not wanting to edit for 3 weeks.
Oh, no.
But we'll see if we can like resurrect Bab Jab too. It's been a while since he's been on the channel, so yeah. But stay tuned for that. But I guess we can jump in.
Yeah. Yeah. So, first album is Cocteau Twins Treasure. Yeah, I do feel bad for this record. I know I've brought it up a lot while we've been going through, but yeah, I remember really liking this one, and I have been listening to certain tracks over the last week or so. But I feel like it was definitely overshadowed by like the rest of this cycle because we have been listening to like some absolute classics, and not that not that the Cocteau Twins is not a classic, but it's just, man, like we got Elliott Smith, we got Neutral Milk Hotel, we got that War on Drugs record, which is fantastic, and then also we got those new Mitski, new Sufjan, both crazy good. So like it just kind of got completely overshadowed this cycle, which I feel like any other cycle it would be a highlight.
Yes.
But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Sorry, there's a demon attacking me. Get out of here. All right. This record's amazing. This has been in my playlist since like we first reacted to it, and it hasn't left. It's weird because like in that reaction, I was definitely like more of a fan of Heaven or Las Vegas. This has grown on me quite a bit since then. It's a very different mood, so I feel like this is the more cold weather album, so I'm going back to it now again that it's getting colder out. But just enchanting. I love the soundscapes of this thing. You can just dive into it, and it seems like it's just this beautiful, like underwater, spacey, ethereal soundscape. The vocal inflections on this record are insane. Lorelei gets stuck in my head like constantly. It's just that really whimsical like delivery on that song. It just never leaves you. Yeah, we still need to check out more Cocteau Twins. I'm gonna keep putting more on my wheel because it's one of those artists where it's like I feel like I want to keep going. But amazing kind of variety on it too. It does feel more dynamic than Heaven or Las Vegas, so I could definitely see this thing overlapping it as time goes on. But yeah, very, very, very good. I feel like I constantly listen to Donnie Mo, The Closer, Lorelei, Persephone, Pandora, Sicily. I remember liking quite a bit too. The Water Level song was, I think we called it in that video.
We did.
But yeah, amazing. The two records I've heard from Cocteau Twins have both been like near perfect in my eyes. So definitely need to listen to. I don't know which one I want to put on next, honestly. I think Victorialand or Bluebell Knoll probably, but we will add those eventually. Yeah, fantastic. I'm also going to give a rating for all these at the end of my little spiel. The link's in the description if you want to see all the ratings for the ones in this video for me. But I gave this one a 94.
Good rating.
Very good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, starting off pretty strong. And then we followed that up with the All Delighted People EP?
Yes.
Question mark?
Hour-long EP.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want me to start with this one?
Go for it.
Okay. Yeah, so I think this album's pretty solid, but it's not one that I go back to a lot in terms of like the whole album. I think the slower songs are pretty weak in my opinion. Going back, like I hardly ever listened to like From the Mouth of Gabriel. I think we talked about it's like the most shrill, annoying instrumental. And then the Owl and the Tanager I don't really like. Really the only thing from this album that I like go back to all the time is Enchanting Ghost and Heirloom. Sometimes I'll throw on All Delighted People, and if I'm feeling extra spicy, I throw on Johara Joharia, because that song is a slapper, but it's also very long. So I just have to be in the right mood for that one. But in terms of like a little, I don't even want to say little, but 20 minutes of this hour-long thing is the same song twice. Different arrangements and everything, but it's like, it's a little thing, I guess. But it doesn't really compare to any of his other things that I've listened to. If I were to rank them all, this one would definitely be last. But that's just because this is Sufjan Stevens we're talking about here. So, that's that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's still quality, but I think it was more interesting for us to hear the in-between of like Illinois and Carrie and Lowell, and especially for this one, Illinois and Age of Ads, because it's basically a blend of the two.
Yeah.
So I think it was just more interesting to listen to and see where this kind of bridge kind of started happening, where he dug more into this electronic sound. I don't know. I like the lo-fi-ness of it. It seems very mixtapey. And there are some bangers. I do like the Owl and the Tanager quite a bit. And then Enchanting Ghost and Heirloom. I actually like the All Delighted People classic rock version. I feel like it's easier to listen to.
I like the classic rock one more too.
Yeah. But I mean, when it comes to Sufjan, it's like when I go to Sufjan, I don't really look for a lot of tracks on this album. But it is well made, and there's, From the Mouth of Gabriel, not a fan still. I don't know. It seems a lot more bare bones than some of his other records, and I don't mean that instrumental. It just seems a little bit more flat. I feel like all of his records are like very emotionally charged or like very grand, like over the top theatrics, and this one kind of falls in the middle range. But,
yeah.
It's still good. I gave it an 86, so
yeah,
bad in terms of Sufjan, but like good in terms of in general music.
Yes, I would say that's pretty accurate. But we're both pretty big fans of Mr. Stevens. So
Mr. Stevens.
So that's that. Next up is A Deeper Understanding, The War on Drugs. This is an album that is fantastic. It's not one that I listen to the whole album usually, but like this is, I'll have like a couple of these songs on my playlist, and every time, like as I was listening to like this winning playlist, this cycle, preparing for this retrospective, and I'm like, okay, Mitski, I listen to Mitski all the time. Here's Sufjan, I listen to that one all the time. And then it was like a War on Drugs song came on. I'm like, yes, this is going to be awesome. It's just going to be a fun little like 8-minute track while I'm throwing mail in mailboxes. That's what it's getting me through my day. It's awesome. So yeah, I can't say I've listened to it a whole lot, but man, I just like revisiting it recently has been just fantastic. I love this band. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I love this album. It's been in my playlist the day we did it, and it hasn't left. I feel like this is one of those where I add the whole album to my playlist, and I usually don't skip much of the songs on it, um, with the exception of a couple. But I mean, even the ones that I had issues with in the video, or like I don't really have much of anymore. Mostly because like I don't know if I even really go back to Lost in the Dream after this, because this is the album where it's like what I like from them is the atmosphere and the builds and the more like slow psychedelic type stuff. And I feel like they do it better on this album than they did on Lost in the Dream. So I don't really go back to that record as much after hearing this one. Um,
Hmm.
but man, this is just, it's easy listening, but it's also like, I don't know, it hits deep and it sounds fantastic and it's very accessible. Which is another thing where you can kind of just throw it on anywhere and it's not going to be like too much for you. Um, Strangest Thing is fantastic. I love the build on that song. Thinking of a Place is still one of my favorite songs ever. We did that on the best songs video, and that's the reason that this album made it on the list
That's true.
to react to. And man, that song still is just fantastic.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, even something like Pain, when that comes on, it's like I can't skip that song. Um, but yeah, really, really, really like tight album. Hour and 6 minutes, 10 songs. I love the track lengths. I like long songs. I like when it has time to breathe and fully develop.
Yeah.
They definitely have a formula, and it does kind of show on a couple of songs here. If like Nothing Defined and Knockdown were my two least favorites, just because it felt like songs I've already heard from them. But everything else here is fantastic. So definitely looking forward to doing more of them as well. I know they have that 2021 album
Yeah.
that we could check out. They also have Slave Ambient from 2011. That might be good. But I'm hoping they release a new record soon, because it'll be 4 years or 3 years soon. So
Yeah. That's true.
hopefully,
I know Bab Jab has listened to the newest one and he said it was pretty
yes.
good. So
Yeah. So
nice.
we might check that one out in the future. But I gave this one a 91, despite me loving it so much. I feel like I need to like when you see it next to other albums, it's like, okay, I need to reevaluate where this is at. But it's still really fantastic. It might grow with time, but
Yeah.
so good.
Yes. Very, very good. And then after that, we entered our like 90s classic run where we was Microphones. Is that 90s too?
2001, but close
2000.
enough.
Oh, that's right. It was 9/11.
It was the 9/11. Yeah.
Okay, well, next up was Aeroplane Over the Sea by Neutral Milk Hotel. This one might be my favorite record out of this bunch. I listened to it constantly after we listened to that on the channel. It was just like a thing where I was listening to the whole record every single day for probably like a couple months. I think like it has just grown on me so much. Like there was so much that we missed in that video, especially when it came to lyrics, but there was no way to get all of that off first rip. But now it's like it's one of my I don't know, like in terms of lyrics, it's one of my favorite records of all time. And like how I'm not really great about describing how it's good, but it's
This is the one album where you can just say it's like objectively good.
yes. Yes. And I love like the pacing of it too. It never feels like it never gets stale. It's not just all, you got your acoustic songs and you got your kind of harder, heavier songs, and I feel like they did a really good job of balancing it. All of the tracks are like really distinct. It doesn't feel like a formula at all. Like just listening to it, like I know all of these songs based on their title, and it's like I don't know if I can say that for all of the records or all of in this cycle. But that being said, there's one song on the losing playlist for this cycle, and it is untitled. I hate that song, but it's fine. It doesn't drag down the album too much for me, but I usually do just go from Ghost to Two-Headed Boy 2, and Two-Headed Boy 2 I think is my favorite song. So goes from my least favorite to my most favorite, but man, I love this thing.
Yeah, I agree. Incredible. this was one going in where it was gonna be a little weird because like this is the music nerd album, and there's usually two things that happens when it's a music nerd album in the online age. It's either overly pretentious or it's something so out of left field that like you think it's a joke that people are doing, like reading it that high.
Yeah.
Of course, that's only for a couple of records. I mean, but this thing, it's like the immediate emotion of it is the strongest quality of it, and it shines through like from the first song. The lyrics are all over the place. It's weird. The whole concept is just bizarre, but it makes a lot of sense on a deep emotional level. And I feel like when it comes to records like this in the kind of folk area, to hit hard in emotion while also being incredibly lyrically dense and thorough is really, really difficult to do. Yeah, this thing gripped me immediately in the reaction more than I thought it would. I was able to kind of follow the storyline and everything pretty immediately, but as you listen, you dig more and more into it, and you just find more and more things. But yeah, just this bizarre kind of like romanticization of like Anne Frank and the time period of World War II, and you know his personal issues with his father, and all of these things culminating into one like really really Loctite album, despite all those themes being really strange for a record.
Yes.
Yeah, and I find with current events like this thing hits even harder, just like having this kind of, it's almost parasocial relationship with like oppressed peoples, and it's a weird emotive thing where the music kind of binds it, and you feel it all when you listen to the record, and it's like, wow, this is really beyond words describing. But it is like this really strange relationship of someone you've never met from halfway across the world, and it's just really bizarre, but it sounds fantastic. It flows great. Yeah, I don't even know what my favorite song is on here. The title track's awesome. Two-Headed Boy, obviously. The Fool into Holland 1945 is great. I'm listing the whole album at this point. I think Oh Comely is probably my favorite song still.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's just, that's it one way to grip an audience for 8 minutes straight and have it feel like it's a 4 minute song. Just like the pure emotion coming off of this thing is just next level. So
And most of it's just the guitar and his voice.
it is, yeah. There's not a lot happening. It's very kind of lo-fi in that way, and it's timeless in its execution. So yeah, 98, pretty close to 100. It might get there one day, but I feel like my 100s are very like, I have to like really, 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 really get into something for it to be 100.
Sure.
I try to hold that to a very high standard. Otherwise, I'm going to be like just handing them out to stuff that's fantastic. But yeah, near perfect, amazing.
Fantastic record. Next up on our 90s classic run, this time it's 90s R&B. We got The Velvet Rope by Janet Jackson. This one, I don't know. I'm not like the biggest fan of 90s R&B, despite what everyone in the comments thinks. I know they're all saying like, you guys just, you have all the right takes when it comes to 90s R&B. You can tell that like most of the people leaving comments in that video like watched the first 5 minutes and then left a comment where it's like, you guys need to stop comparing your work to Michael Jackson. And it's just like, we mentioned it in like track 2, and then like for the rest of the album we didn't bring up Michael at all. So I'm not sure, but I do like this record quite a bit. That Q-Tip Joni Mitchell song that one's fantastic. But this one isn't one that I go back to a whole lot, but when it comes on, I'm not skipping it. That's kind of my feelings about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't go back to it a whole lot, but there are definitely key songs that I kind of go back to. I feel like when it comes to 90s R&B, it's like, it is definitely a time period, and I find it hard having it in my everyday playlist, so I often don't add a lot of songs just because it is so like strikingly different from the stuff I usually listen to on a daily basis. But with that being said, this is like probably my favorite out of the R&B albums we've done. I know Brandy's Full Moon was kind of like my peak when it came to that. I feel like this is just right next to it in terms of quality, probably a little bit better. Incredibly inventive, man, the beats on this thing are insane. I love it. The flow of this album is really great. Um, of course, there's always going to be more slow, soft R&B ballads. I feel like this record navigates some of the best that I've heard so far throughout, like Aaliyah and Brandy.
Yeah.
I'm still not a fan of them, but I feel like they were the most interesting to me in here. But man, this record is like unforgiving in its content. It doesn't hold anything back, and I think that's like the best part of it. It's like a true rock star experience from this like huge pop star that was, you know, a generation or two removed from what we grew up listening to. So it's interesting to hear how the musical landscape was doing back then, but just the sensuality and everything of this record, just the pure fun of it, like the beats are so good, her vocals are great, a lot of variation here, and this is one where like interludes truly do enhance this record.
Yeah.
I love the way that everything kind of transitions into each other with these fun little interludes. Go Deep is still one of my favorites. Yeah, subject matter fantastic. A lot of LGBT rights on this thing in the late 90s, which is fantastic to see. Yeah, I mean, it's a long record, but it is definitely worth your time. I don't go back to it a lot, but if I'm ever in the mood for it, this is the first R&B album I'm going to. So with that being said, 92, really, really, really good. Again, not something I listen to every day, but it's like I have a deep appreciation for this record.
Sure. We'll get to one of those later for me.
Yes.
I feel like you already know what it is.
I do.
But before we get to that, let's finish off our 90s run with Elliott Smith's XO. This one I loved. This one, I know I mentioned in the video, like I had basically no experience for what Elliott Smith, like what kind of music he made. I knew that he has a reputation for making very sad music. But I don't feel like, in terms of like how the music sounds, it's not a super sad sounding record. Some of that is through the lyrics. Like a lot of it is talking about like toxic relationships, and also dealing with like addiction and stuff like that. So there is some of that in the lyrics, but like, I don't know. Waltz Number 2 was just fun. It's a fun sounding song. And I feel like
if you're not listening to lyrics,
if you're not lyric,
so
yeah,
fun.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like that's kind of a trend throughout this whole record. It's a kind of balancing act that he strikes throughout this whole thing. There are definitely sadder songs on here, but I don't feel like that it isn't like, it's not so sad that I can't turn it on. Like sometimes it's like Carrie and Lowell, it's like, do I want to do that to myself today? But this one is like somewhat easy listening if you're not really listening to the lyrics, but still, I really like it. I'm really excited. I'm pretty sure I have Either Or on my list. If not, I need to add it because I want to do all of the Elliott Smith eventually. I think there's only 4 or something. Or maybe there's 5. There's like a posthumous. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think there's 4.
I don't know, but
we'll figure it out.
we'll get there. But yeah, very nice.
I think there's 6 actually. All right.
What? That's too many.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one that I honestly don't return back to a whole lot.
What?
Surprisingly. It's great. I love it. It does remind me a lot of the Jeff Buckley record we listened to. Again, a little bit more acoustic, but yeah, it is really great. For some reason, I don't return to it a whole lot. I feel like it doesn't hit my ears strongly as a lot of the other things on this list. But one of these, like, if you dive into the record fully, like, there is a lot here that is fantastic. The writing on this thing is great. It's one of those albums where you can kind of pick lines out of every single song that are just like really, really, really strong. You know, pure poetry at a lot of these points.
Yeah.
I love the subject matter on this record. It gets kind of angry at points. It's depressive. It has this kind of like anxious energy to it, but the guitar playing and everything is so pretty. Vocals are pretty good. They're often a little bit understated on a lot of songs, but like there are songs where it really opens up and it feels really, really, really great.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I feel like Tomorrow is the one I go back to the most. I don't know. I just love the guitar playing on that song. Honestly, like Waltz Number Two, obviously fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows that. Baby Britain's pretty great. Um, but that's really all I go back to. I need to listen to this one more. I think we just had a flood of like really amazing albums, so some of them had to get pushed to the wayside.
Sure.
And I think this was one of them. So this will be one where I probably return back to it much later and have a little bit deeper of appreciation for it. But I mean, this was, you don't get a Phoebe Bridgers without Elliott Smith. So I mean, Phoebe Bridgers hits harder for me, but this is also brilliant. So it's like,
Yeah.
two sides of the same coin almost. I gave this one a 90.
Yes.
These are all high scores so far.
All very high scores. It's just because you're a terrible critic.
Yeah, so I got to give everything a good score.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of good scores, next up was our 9/11 special, The Glow Part 2 by the Microphones. Yeah, this one is just way too intimidating for me to go back to. Interestingly, and this is probably the only time these two albums have ever been compared, but I had the same reaction to Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. The first time I listened to that record, I'm like, I can't. There's too much here. I don't know what's going on. It probably took me like a couple weeks to go back and listen to it, and then it kind of entered the rotation there. I have not gone back to this one, but I don't think, tonally, this is not usually what I'm listening to, just in general. I have a lot of respect for it. I hold it in very high esteem because it's very well made and well crafted. I still have whenever I hear that tone at the end of this album, it makes me feel things.
So good.
And I've never had that kind of reaction to an album before. So I want to give props where props is due, but yeah, man, I can't go back. It's too much.
Yeah. It's weird because we did In the Aeroplane Over the Sea literally like 2 weeks before this record. And I'm like, that's fantastic. This is amazing. And then we hit this thing and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is kind of my In the Aeroplane Over the Sea, where it's like, this is the one where it's like, boom, this is mine.
Gotcha.
Oh my God, it's incredible. It was very weird and hard to do a reaction to this because a lot of it was there's a lot going on here and there's a lot of different styles and it's long and there's a lot of songs. So it's a lot to take in, but as I've just been listening to it constantly since we've done that reaction, things keep popping out and it's just, man, I feel like this inspired a lot of music.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even the first 4 tracks, that first 4 run is really, really insane. I feel like I classify those as the more beefy songs up front. They're most accessible. They're the ones that are probably going to have the most recognizable value to them. I Want One to Blow is fantastic opener. The Glow Part 2, like a continuation of that. The Moon is incredible with the horns. There's energy to it. Headless Horseman is like a fantastic acoustic ballad. Honestly, the ones I find myself coming back to most are My Roots Are Strong and Deep and I Will Not Contain You. Both of these are like less than 3-minute songs on this record, but for some reason they just hit really hard. There's a lot of the lo-fi production on this record is like next level. The way that pianos are kind of played softly and then loudly and brought to the forefront, and noise is added to them or taken away. There's sound clips. There's a whole bunch of random stuff happening. I Will Not Contain You. Maybe it's weird that I might call this the best song because it you know, if you put it next to anything else, it's not going to sound that impressive. But I mean, the sequencing of this thing, like after My Roots Are Strong and Deep ends, it goes into this like really depressive, ambient, sparse cycle for 4 songs, and you're kind of trapped in this limbo or void for about 8 minutes, and then you get hit with this acoustic ballad that's double tracked against its own track, and then off put by a couple of measures. And for some reason, that fracturing of it just like breaks me. And then you enter like the second phase of the record, and you get something like Map, where the energy is just palpable. This thing is an entire journey. This is a feature-length film and a record, which you don't get very often. I mean, I like to call things atmospheric a lot, but this puts you in like in a headspace and in something that like it's hard to describe. But it just encapsulates a lot of different things in one record. Absolutely fantastic. It deserves all of the praise it's gotten. Again, this is one of these where it's like, how have I not heard this yet? This is right up my alley, and it's one that I completely missed. So I gave this one a 99. I am a coward. I'll bump it up to 100 one day, but it's sitting at 99 for now. A lot of you guys have recommended Mount Erie by the Microphones. I'll probably put that one on there. That's going to be an incredibly depressing record. But I was going to put A Crow Looked at Me, so we're going to start with Mount Erie first because I don't want to dive into that head first. So,
yeah, that one was the one that I was like, like we could do that one. Even though I don't even know like how a reaction to that album would be.
Yeah, I know it's going to be fantastic, but we'll see which one we feel comfortable doing, because one might not be much of a informal or informative reaction. But
no, probably not.
Masterpiece. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, good stuff. I think we went to maybe one of the best made records to maybe one of the worst. Not that this album is bad, but Pine Grove's 1111.
It was a little bit of a shift.
It was. Well, it was, you know, we had been in the past for so long. It was like, okay, now we're going to come back to some new records, because I think this album came out in 2021. Or 2022. I think it was 2022.
2022.
Yeah. And it was both of our first experiences with Pine Grove. I had heard this album before, but I do enjoy it. It's probably my least favorite out of this cycle, but I do like a lot of songs on it, like Iodine, Habitat, Orange. I do like So What. I know you were wishy-washy on So What, but I like that song quite a bit. And I do throw on this record from time to time because it's pretty fun. I do have my problems with it, but it's by no means unlistenable. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I know that we got like people who were Pine Grove fans being like, this is not my favorite one either, but like it's cool that you're reacting to it. So maybe we'll throw some of...
I do want to go back and listen because I feel like they deserve a more fair shot than what, you know, they got with this one.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one we would do.
Yeah, I think looks like their 2015 one is like the most popular, and that has some pretty good ratings. It's pretty consistently great until it hits Marigold in 2020, it looks like. So
okay,
we have a plethora of ones we could go into.
We'll figure it out, because I did like what we got here. It's just in terms of like some of the writing stuff. I mean, it's a COVID record, and I think that was probably both of our main complaints, is that it's like too on the nose.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you know, maybe take away the COVID stuff and maybe got some good stuff. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know if even like the COVID stuff is my issue with the record. It's the way that it's portrayed. Yeah, this thing got kind of a rough shake because we listened to like some of the best albums we've heard in our lives for the past 3 or 4 weeks at this point, and then this is the next thing that came up, and it was really a shift.
Yes.
Because it's soft, it's quiet, it's an indie rock record. Yeah, but that being said, I mean, like, a lot of the themes are surrounding COVID in that current moment in early 22, which is fine. but I feel like it's so pigeonholed in that era that I kind of don't want to look back at those times, for one.
Sure.
And two, I feel like it wasn't inventive enough or striking enough where it got an emotional reaction out of me. I think Orange is by far the best song here. That was the kind of climate change
Yes.
focus song. I think
Hmm.
that was done really well. I felt the emotion, everything matched well. But the rest, it came across a little whiny, it came across a little disconnected, and it felt like it didn't know exactly what it wanted to say. I love political music, I love political anything, but you have to have your message strong and you have to make me feel something out of it.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you're kind of just like, it felt like he was reading headlines and he didn't do anything deeper and then just wrote based off of the grief he was feeling based on a couple of headlines he saw on social media or something. I want deep, like, introspective, powerful, charged lyrics. Like,
Hmm.
I brought up, like, don't say COVID on your album. I still agree with that. It can be done. The Arm& and Hammer record proved me wrong. There's a bar that says COVID on there, but like the way they portray that is a lot better. It puts you in that mood.
Hmm.
I feel like that's the biggest thing is this record didn't do that. But without that being said, it still sounded really nice. I like the arrangements a lot. Obviously, an indie folk record, I'm going to be all over. But Habitat sounded great. Orange was great. I really enjoyed Swimming too. Um, so yeah, definitely want to give Pine Grove another shot. So let us know which one we should go to,
Yeah,
because they got a couple options for us, and I'm definitely excited to. I gave this one a 73,
that's fair.
the lowest score you'll see in this video.
Which, I mean, a 73 is still pretty good for
It's
being
still
the
not bad.
lowest
Yeah,
score. Yeah.
I tend to I don't do severe ratings because I see the art in a lot of things. I feel like, and it's like I got to give that at least. Plus, I don't go out of my way to listen to music I don't like just so I can rate it low.
Yes. Yeah, I'm the same way with movies. My
Hmm.
letterbox skews positive, but it's like
Yeah,
I'm not watching a lot of trash, you know. I like watching good stuff.
I
So,
know what I like, and that's where I'm going.
exactly. I don't need a perfect bell curve,
Exactly.
even though I try, but that's fine. All right. Our last two were both new releases. We have Mitski's The Land is Inhospitable, and so are we. I'm not going to speak for both of us, but this is maybe my favorite Mitski record that we've done
This is
so far.
definitely my favorite Mitski
Okay.
record.
I might go so far as to say this is the best Mitski record that we have done so far. I love this thing so much. It's funny, you know, I was going to make a joke where once that Sufjan album came out, I'm like, man, Mitski, it happened twice on this channel. Because,
Mhm.
like, the first one was we did Lush by Mitski and then Lush by Snail Mail. Lush by Snail Mail is an absolute classic.
Oh yeah,
And
that kind
then,
of overshadowed it.
yeah. And so I'm like, oh, that's going to happen again. Once that Sufjan record comes out, then that's going to completely overshadow this Mitski. I listen to both
Uh-uh.
records every day, and
Yep.
Mitski plays first.
Yep.
This is, I love this one so much. Especially, I think my favorite song is I Don't Like My Mind. It's the weird country twang one.
Hmm.
It's just like, is that yeah, that's the one that may or may not be influenced by that A24 Ghost
Pretty sure
Story
it
movie.
is. Yeah. Yeah.
But man, just something about the lyrics in that one. And it's kind of what I was talking about with the Elliott Smith one, where it's this like, it's pretty listenable. Like most of the Mitski miserableness is in the first half. And then like the second half is more like, I don't know, there's still like relationship stuff, but it's more like just accepting love, and it's such a positive spin kind of in terms of, you know, a Mitski thing. But wow, yeah, I love the sound of this thing. The lyrics back it up 100%. Like, I don't know, we're seeing like Mitski at the top of her game here. I'm like so pumped to see what she's gonna do next.
Yeah. Definitely my favorite Mitski album. Man, it, indie folk being as big as it is currently in the landscape and like all of these big artists, it's like Mitski was doing a lot of weird stuff. She did this weird 80s album before this, and then it was Before that, it was Be a Cowboy, which was great, leaning more into that rock direction. She comes in this indie folk scene and does it better than 99% of the people that are in it right now.
Yeah.
The exceptions being Boy Genius and Sufjan, which we've both gotten this year.
Right.
But this is pretty close to that Boy Genius record for me. It might be better, actually.
I think I like it more. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so consistent. I love the range of sound she's going for. I love the country twang. I feel like it fits her voice so well. And I love the picture painting. I love when any artist picture paints like this. You got something like Buffalo Replaced where you can hear the train going and the beat.
Yeah.
You have these kind of starry atmospheric moments in it. And there's a lot of driving energy on this record too. I love that. And especially like I'm Your Man with this like really kind of old school outlaw country type thing.
Yeah.
The slow build of that track is fantastic. The lyrics are great. And it's weird because I talk about these two songs, but then you have something like Heaven and My Love, Mine, Oh Mine in this record. Gorgeous, fantastic. Some of the best vocals I've heard this year out of anybody.
Yes.
Because she has such a power to her voice, but she strips it all back on this record and she can get very intimate and close, and it sounds just as good. I think that was my biggest disconnect with Mitski records is like I did not physically connect with the lyrical themes enough to like go back to it as much as I wanted to, and I feel like with this record it definitely like changed that, because I mean My Love Mine All Mine, I go back to that like once a day at least.
Yeah.
And I mean with a song like that it's only 2 minutes long, so I'm gonna play it like 4 or 5 times a day because it's just perfect. I think that one's blown up on TikTok since
I think so. Yeah.
reacted to it because it's got 155 million plays on it. Which I mean, it's still a fantastic song. I don't care if you're using it in your stupid meme on TikTok; it's still good.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, When Memories Snow is great. And the album's 32 minutes. Like it's so easy to turn on and just listen to. So, yeah. Amazing, fantastic, one of the best this year. I gave this one a 90, but it definitely has the opportunity to move up a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's length. I've definitely had days where I've played it twice in a row. Just because it works so well. And it's so short. So it works. So yeah, great stuff. I'm very excited for Mitski. Which, you know, I think we liked Mitski before, but this one was at least the first one for me where it was like, I'm going back to it like all the time.
I always feel like when we reacted to Mitski, I was just so intrigued in learning about the artist and like being like, you know, looking and appreciating her craft. But I felt like there was always a disconnect. This one was like right up my alley, I felt like.
Yeah. All right, so now we're gonna end with Sufjan Stevens' Javelin. Yeah, I like this one a lot too. I will say, and this might be controversial, I like the Mitski one, I think, a little more than Javelin. Obviously, there's a lot of, I guess, emotional baggage with this one. There's the backstory with it being about his dead partner, and I think, let me see how to articulate this. I like this album a lot, but like I think it doesn't rate, like it's not, in my opinion, I don't know if it's going to be a Sufjan classic. I like it, but it kind of gives me like Beginner's Mind vibes where like I love that record too, but like I don't know if this is as good as Carrie and Lowell. I know I may have said something along that effect in the reaction, but I went back to Carrie and Lowell, I went back to Illinois, and I'm like, man, these records are near perfect, and this record is great too. Like this might be Sufjan at his best in terms of lyrics. There's so many like emotional themes here. Shit Talk, maybe one of the best songs of the year for me. Also, I want to bring up the Neil Young cover at the end. I listened to the Neil Young song, in the reaction, I said, I can't think of the Neil Young song. It's on my favorite Neil Young album, and I can't think of it. It is my least favorite song on that album. And I listened to that song, and I'm like, this is the same song? This song sucks. And I don't know. There's a World might be one of my... It's up there in terms of songs on this record. I don't know. I really like this thing. But yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings, but I'm very positive on it. I'm just not entirely sure how I feel. And give me a couple months and I'll probably have a completely different opinion. But it's very good. I'm just torn.
Yeah, this one has grown on me a lot. I mean, I really liked it in the video, but again, it's one where it's like, this needs time with you to really kind of hit you, especially when a record as personal as this. It's like, you can only get so much out of doing a reaction, knowing you're on camera and have to give thoughts about it, rather than just sitting down and just letting this thing take you. I mean, the second you turn this on with Goodbye Evergreen, you know exactly what you're in for.
Yes.
It's fantastic. I love the mixing of the more intimate with the very grandiose. I love the synth outros. Everything just feels so natural and it feels like its own moment. I feel like I don't even know what my favorites are on this record anymore. I mean, Shit Talk is, that surpasses this record. That's top thing of this year, most likely.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but I feel like I honestly don't go back to a running start. Barely ever, which is strange because I remember really liking it in the video. But something like Everything That Rises, I go back to that one a lot. I know I edited this in the video, and a lot of people said in the comments that My Red Little Fox was one of their favorites, and that we didn't really like it as much. Second listen to that song, literally while editing that video, I'm like, oh my god, this song's amazing. What was I listening to? It's one of my favorites now. I love the subtlety of it. I love the more acousticness. It just feels like an old school Sufjan song, just like upscaled a little bit. I think my main criticism is that it didn't really know where to go, but I think it's just the pacing of the record when it gets to that moment. And I think with a record like this with a backstory, there's always little expectations you have implanted in your head when you go into a record like that. And if something doesn't like rub you the right way immediately, it can be kind of like weird. But I feel like going back to it, I understood it a lot more and I connected with it a lot more. I mean, it's a pretty flawless run. Like once you hit track 3, in my opinion, Running Start is the only one where it's like I'm not too crazy about, but everything else here is fantastic. I love how Javelin into Shit Talk into There's a World, one of the best ways to close an album. You get all of these different emotions and you have this fantastic climax. It drops down and then you're into an old Neil Young cover that just like, it's like just a release of everything you listen to. It's a nice way to end it, and I feel like that's a big reason I can replay this record a lot, because Carrie and Lowell, that thing beats you up and doesn't stop, because you get 4th of July and then you get The Only Thing.
Yeah.
You have Carrie and Lowell to kind of bring it up, but then John My Beloved, No Shade in the Shadow of the Cross, and then Blue Bucket of Gold. It does not let you up at all. I like the pacing of this record a little bit more because it does provide a little bit of brevity and a little bit of positivity at the end. And I think I get that throughout this record a lot. It's a lot more of a mature look at grief than Carrie and Lowell was. Carrie and Lowell's very raw. It's unapologetic. I think that's why I love it so much. But I also like this side of the coin where it's a little bit more refined. It's a little bit more mature. The feelings are still there and they're still the same, but they're presenting it in a way where it's a little bit more palpable for an everyday listening experience.
Sure.
But yeah, amazing, fantastic. This completely like shattered my top 5 for the year. I kind of have to reorder stuff after this record came out.
Yes.
But gave this one a 93 with possibility of it going up again. But fantastic.
Yes. Very, very good. Yeah. This is maybe the best cycle.
I think this was the best cycle we've done so far.
I don't know. I didn't look through. I know our first run was very good. We got a lot of classics, Like I know we got like Blonde and Illinois and In Rainbows, like all of those, like right off the bat. But I don't know. At least in terms of like, since I've been making these winning and losing playlists, so since retrospective 3, this is, I don't know. I don't know. We've never been this consistently
No,
fantastic.
yeah, this is the most consistent because I'm looking through and it's like, oh my god, I gave Miracle Music Hole 20. I forgot about that. Yeah, and then we
Bring
had
it on.
5, which had like Corey Feldman, Peppa Pig, Rainbow Bridge 3, but we also had Pink Moon in there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a weird
Yeah.
one.
Oh yeah, we had Doug Walker too. Wow. Yeah, this is definitely the most consistent so far.
Yeah. I think
There's always
so.
like one dud at least in every single one of these.
Well, the dud on this one is not even like
No, it's not even bad.
So yeah. I don't know. We'll see if that keeps up. I don't know what our plans are going forward.
Yeah, I think we've been enjoying our personal wheels. We're still kind of taking suggestions and putting them in if they sound interesting to us, but I feel like we're getting a lot more fulfillment out when it's like our personal wheels more than doing a fan marathon for 4 months, because then it's like you get such whiplash from that. It's hard to kind of find a groove. I felt like this one we really found a groove, and we were just getting a lot of really good stuff. Not to say that fan requests are going away, but we're definitely in this lane for a little bit.
Yeah.
But we'll always do a little bit of fan stuff in there, and a lot of the stuff on my wheel is fan requests. So
For sure. I mean, like XO was a fan request, and the aeroplane over the sea was.
Velvet Rope was,
Velvet
Deep
Rope.
Understanding was.
So it's like most of this stuff is fan reacted.
Right.
It's just like we're
not
picking it.
from the fan wheel. Yeah.
Yeah. But speaking of picking albums,
Oh my god, it's been so long.
I know. I think it's time to spin a wheel. All right, we're back
All right.
at the wheel.
We're back. If we get a meh, we're doing the Cure Disintegration, since that did get picked by me initially, and then we did Mitski instead because I forgot about it. So my next meh will be the Cure Disintegration.
No, we'll see if we're gonna do the Cure Disintegration. It looks like we're going to do the Cure Disintegration next week.
Maybe.
Cure Disintegration. Got it. Right
I'm
there.
surprised it just like happened right away.
Yeah, like you explained exactly what was going to happen.
And then it happened.
You're like Babe Ruth calling a shot.
Yeah, exactly.
So that'll be there. If you're wondering why we didn't talk about Fleet Foxes, that's going to be in the next retrospective. We always take one album off because it's kind of hard to do a retrospective on something you just listened a week ago. That being said, I love this Fleet Foxes record.
Definitely listening to it.
I am too. I'm very excited to talk about it once we eventually get there in about 3 months. But yeah, next week, Cure Disintegration. I think I'll throw up our wheels or our lists here. Yeah.
Still probably gonna update some of mine, but that's what it is for now.
That's what it is for now, as of me editing this video. But it's not like you don't see these lists every week when we spin the wheel, so I don't know. But if you need a refresher, there you go. Or if anything has changed. But I think, without further ado, I think that's it.
I think so.
Great.
I'm just thinking about what we want to do for a thumbnail, so I'm zoning out.
Oh, well, yes, that's the best part
If
about
you
these
look,
videos.
this is the best part about the reaction recaps. If you look at the thumbnails for these, they're always a little bit unhinged.
Yes, we let our creative juices fly.
Yes.
But speaking of creative juices, why don't you go on over to the podcast channel and listen to our podcast where we talk about a myriad of different topics. This last week's was a
roller coaster.
a roller coaster. It was supposed to be part 4 of our Halloween marathon. It did not quite end up being that. So if you're wondering what we're talking about, why don't you go over and listen to the episode. It's on YouTube, or you can get it wherever you're getting your podcasts.
Anywhere you find podcasts.
Yes. Or wherever fine podcasts are downloaded. YouTube music. That's where I listen to my podcast.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored yet.
We will never get a sponsor.
No, that's okay. I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it for the art.
Yeah.
We're real artists here.
We don't make art. We just talk about it.
Which, in a way, is making art. It's as Roger Ebert once said, "This is art. Deal with it." I don't think he ever said that, but it sounds like something he would say. Okay.
See you later.